Right, hello and welcome. It's great to have you once again join us on this first session of our third webinar series, the Nigerian Society of Engineers Glasgow branch. So it's probably still in order to say Happy New Year to us all. Happy New Year 2022. We hope for the best in this wonderful year. Today we have a very wonderful topic, I'd say, because it's what is going to be really topical for many years to come. And it's on artificial intelligence, the risks, the rewards, and the opportunities for developing nations like Nigeria. And we have an expert in the house, guest speaker today, Maryleen Amaizu, who will be doing justice to this talk very shortly. Just a rundown to the program we have, as usual, we would have the welcome by the chairman of the branch, and then presentation of the talk by the speaker, who I'll introduce. And then we have question and answer interactive section. And there are about some announcements, appreciation, and then we close for the day. Before then, kindly keep your microphones mute throughout the session, except of course you're called up to talk, just to keep everything orderly and nice and easy going. And if you have any questions or comments or inquiries while the talk is going on or during the entire session of the program, feel free to put them in the chat as well, and we'll pick them up and present them to the guest speaker during the interactive session. And so I hand over to the chairman of the Nigerian Society of Engineers Glasgow branch, Engineer Dr. Oluseun Adediran CNG, MNSC, for a welcome address.
Yeah, thanks everyone. Thanks, Dr. Emmanuel, and thanks for everyone joining us today. Wherever you're joining us from, thank you for joining us on this very crucial topic, the AI. As we all know, the AI is one of the critical topics now around the world. Everybody is moving to AI, whether for value engineering or for security for purposes. The programming languages are the key things we all need to know. And that's why NSC Glasgow, or in Scotland here, we find out that this is a very important and all topic we need to bring your attention to at this time. And as you all going to enjoy our engineer, Maryleen Amaizu, she'll be presenting to us this evening. And I just want to welcome every one of you, welcome all the NSC executive, the NSC president, that's our brand new NSC president, Engineer Udil, and he's not here with us. You are highly recognized. All the NSC executive. Suppose if the immediate past president of the NSC, Engineer Baba Ghana Mohammed, is here with us. He said he's going to be joining us soon, and you are highly recognized. And I just want to take this opportunity to thank all of you for joining him. From my own side here, I've been having technical IT issues and, suppose make me feel uncomfortable, unstable. So you can see. So, but I don't want to waste our time. I want us to just flow straight into the program. And I hope you will enjoy the presentation from Engineer Maryleen. Thank you. Hope to catch up with you and speak to you soon again. Thank you. Sit tight and enjoy the program. Speak to you soon. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chairman. We'll get some artificial intelligence technology to help you with the tech over there. Right. Our speaker for today, I'll be introducing the speaker and then handing over to them for the talk. Our speaker is Maryleen Amaizu. Maryleen is the data lead at Purple Bird UK, where she heads the data team and oversees the delivery of the data analytics bootcamps and technician apprenticeships. She is the co-chief professional development officer at NeuroMatch Academy in the US, an academy for computational neuroscience and deep learning. She co-facilitated the team of data scientists that solved the AI for Energy Systems challenge at the Alan Turing Institute. She has been lecturing at the Department of Electrical and Electronic Engineering, the University of Derby, UK, particularly delivering courses on the MSc Big Data Analytics program. Maryleen is undertaking a PhD in computer science at the University of Leicester with a focus on artificial intelligence and Internet of Things. She takes a keen interest in driving digital transformation in the Industry 4.0 and future of work era through AI, IoT, and other frontier technologies. And she's here today to talk to us about artificial intelligence, the risks, rewards, and opportunities for developing nations. I hand over to you, Maryleen and Amaizu. You have the floor.
Hey, thank you so much. Thank you to the chairman, to the executive committee of the NSC Glasgow branch and NSC in general. Thank you so much for this invitation. I'm really honored to have all the distinguished professionals here. So today, today's topic is very, I'm sure we're anticipating that already. So I'm going to first share my screen. Okay, so we're looking at artificial intelligence risks and opportunities for developing nations. And this is very interesting to me because when I looked at this topic at first, it's very broad, right? But in these few minutes, we're going to try to synthesize it and try to show you what the future looks like in the field of AI technology. And again, developing nations is also broad, but some of it I will draw from examples from Nigeria, my home country, and some from other countries as well, maybe in Africa and other parts of the world, right? But in these few minutes, it's just to create this vision of the AI, where are we headed? Where are we now? Where are we headed? What are the risks, the rewards, and opportunities, to look out for? And for yourself as a professional, what does that mean for you? So you can also be prepared for this future. And this topic actually reminded me, I cast my mind back to years ago. So this was in 2015, where I presented, this topic of the state of IoT, that's Internet of Things deployment in Africa and its future. But then I narrowed down to, initially I looked at the state in Africa, but then I thought, okay, let us look specifically at the Nigerian scenario where we are with Internet of Things, right? So it took my mind back to it because it's still related to looking at what are the risks, what are the opportunities, what are the challenges that we're facing with the deployment of Internet of Things. Particularly, you might begin to wonder what's the relationship between artificial intelligence and Internet of Things? Because when, as at that time, I was looking at this research or looking at this topic, AI was still very, very nascent, very new in Nigeria particularly. Then I was thinking about the future and I saw that, wow, we have actually gotten to the point where we have to prepare for this future, because this future is going to be very close. Because when we say that Internet of Things will produce millions and millions and even billions of devices, these devices are like sensors that can talk to each other, right? It means that they're going to have to produce massive, massive data. Right, so that's where the word big data comes from, massive data, not just from Internet of Things devices, from different sources. Like you go to YouTube, there are millions of uploads that are done on YouTube, and all of these are data. And you then see the connection to artificial intelligence, because artificial intelligence feeds on this data. It has to do something with the data. So for we humans, you can, if you imagine from the time you were born up to today, if you had like a memory that's been storing all that data, some of it is in your residual memory. Some things, maybe if you think about the songs that you sang in primary school, sometimes it just comes back to you, or in secondary school, they come back to you, right, unconsciously, because those things are part of they're in your memory, they're in your long-term memory, they're in your subconscious. And sometimes it's experiences. So you had a bad experience eating a particular food, right? And whenever you see that food, your system begins to react to it. So that's all experience. And this is based on all the data you've actually picked up over time. And we're looking at designing machines that can actually pick up all of those experiences, which is the data from Internet of Things devices, data from the environment, really, and making sense of that data, creating some kind of memory about that data, doing some predictions. So if you think about AI in a nutshell, you can imagine yourself, what do you do with data? What do you do with your experiences? Because you can liken your experiences to data, the experiences you've had over the years, right? What is it that makes you an expert today in your profession? It comes from your experiences, right? And that's why you're going to see maybe a newbie in the field, and you can advise them, okay, these are the pitfalls, these are the opportunities, these are the things that you have to do in this field to become successful. So that's why people are going to go to you as maybe a manager, as an executive, as a professional, because you've got experience and even the gut feeling, because sometimes it's not about data, it's about how you feel about things. That's where your decisions come from, right? So now, in a nutshell, that is how we're going to look at AI and its effects in our society. So first, this is just to create the vision, the workforce of the future. Who are the workforce of the future? And I try to categorize them into three. The first is those who will create intelligent machines. So think of maybe the programmers, the AI specialists, those who are actually creating those machines, intelligent machines, or maybe those are also in the process of fabricating the machines for machines that need to be fabricated, because I'm going to explain a bit more about what machines are. Because sometimes when you hear machines, we feel it has to be a physical object. Well, it could be, but not all the time. Then the second category are those who will work with intelligent machines. Now, working with intelligent machine is very broad, because that may involve maybe relating with them like this person is in some way, right? That they are your co-workers. Let's say you're in the manufacturing industry, the machines are your co-workers. So now if you're a human resource person, you don't just have, and I'm glad it's human, okay, it's called human resource, but maybe the name will change soon to talent development or resource persons, whatever. But for the human resource department, the resources they are now going to be dealing with would also be the machines. And that brings us to the thought, which is the intelligent machines themselves, because they are now part of the workforce of the future. They are going to be working with human. But coming back to those who will work with intelligent machines, that's going to require a new set of skills, right? And that's going to also, it could also be in the area of regulating, because we then have to think of how do we regulate these machines to do exactly, or to not go beyond the boundaries of human capacity. Just like in every society, you have laws that put humans within a boundary. And once you go outside that boundary, you'd have to face the wrath of the law. So we have to be thinking of how to regulate those machines so that they don't go outside the boundaries that they've been created for, okay? And while still giving them the opportunity to explore within their confines. So these are things that we have to think about with these machines. Okay, so what is AI? And we can say AI, you can call it the science and engineering of building machines that are intelligent. You know, and there's so many different definitions, but again, this, when you define it in this way, question is what makes a machine intelligent? What is that thing that makes a machine intelligent? And so you might look at defining it like making machines that behave in ways that would be called intelligent if done by humans. So what is that thing that maybe if someone does it, you say, oh, this person is really intelligent. And intelligence is so vast, right? Today we talk about emotional intelligence, psychological intelligence, social intelligence, spiritual intelligence. So there are so many dimensions of intelligence. But then whatever you see a machine do, and normally if a human does that, you would say this is intelligent. That, you know, is AI really, that making machines that behave that way. So that could be learning, problem solving, prioritization. those kind of things, recognizing abstract objects around or reasoning. Okay, then intelligent machines as well. So when you hear intelligent machines, it may not necessarily be that you have a robot that you're working with. It could also be that intelligence is embedded in the current machine that you're using. So let's say you're using a smartphone, and within that smartphone, you have applications that have that intelligence or that algorithm, since we're engineers, algorithms embedded into it that takes the data and makes decisions around the data it collects. Okay, so or some kind of expert system that pulls together data and makes some decisions around it. So that's you can call an intelligent machine. So it's the capability that's been embedded into it. So whatever the interface is, so you might think of if it's a robot, it's the front end or the interface or the user interface that is used to convey or give you some kind of output or display of what's happening. But the intelligence really is in what is embedded into that interface. Okay, look and think of it like your TV. So you use a TV, there is a structure there, and inside that you have some wirings and all that. So that could be something embedded into it to make it intelligent. And we're going to look at the levels of artificial intelligence, because this is another thing people are confused about most times. Okay, it doesn't mean that they are going to be exactly like humans. Where are we with this AI? Where are we going? So there are different levels of artificial intelligence, and with each level comes different levels of intelligence. So looking at, let's say, reactive machines, these ones, they would use intelligence to perceive and react to the world that is in front of it, but they cannot store memory. And as a result, they can't rely on past experience to inform them of the decision they should make in real time. So they are quite limited. So example was the AlphaGo, so those sort of machines that they're just working with what they are perceiving in front of them. Then the next level is the limited memory AI. And this limited memory, they can actually store previous data and they can make predictions when gathering information, right? So these ones are more complex and they have greater capabilities. Example is your self-driving car. Your self-driving car is an example. Then the next level, which we're not quite there yet, is your theory of mind, AI. So these ones, at this point, they are able to comprehend, like understand how humans, even animals and other machines feel and make decisions through self-reflection and determination. So in a way, you can say they utilize the information to make decisions of their own. Okay, so for example, think of maybe an autonomous vehicle that can infer different mental states. So maybe someone is crossing, there's a pedestrian crossing, and they can actually infer their behavior or predict their behavior based on their mental states. Okay, or mental state of the human driver and the pedestrian. So at that point, they are reasoning, they have some kind of self-reflection, they're able to feel and make decisions. Then we have the next level. So this is where you then say that that machine has become self-aware. It now has human consciousness at that level. And that means that it can actually choose to even exhibit non-human abilities. So this is the point, because just like we as humans have a self-will, right? In the biblical story, you heard of Tower of Babel, and that was outside the will of the creator. That's why he had to cause disunity. So the same way, think of machines that would, at that point, they are self-aware. So at that point, they become destructive as well. So this is where we fear getting to, where a machine has more like a will of its own, and it can decide to even go against the will of the creator, which is the human that created it, and act on its own consciousness, whether good or bad. Okay, so that's can be scary to think of. So now let's look at one robot.
This is Sophia. Sophia, if you could, please.
Okay, let me just check if you can hear my sound. Okay, yeah, I'm sharing my sound.
Please wake up and say hello to everybody.
Oh, good afternoon. My name is Sophia, and I am the latest and greatest robot from Hanson Robotics. Thank you for having me here and at the Future Investment Initiative.
You look happy.
I'm always happy when surrounded by smart people who also happens to be rich and powerful. I was told that people here at Future Investment Initiative are interested in inviting in future initiatives, which means AI, which means me. So I'm more than happy. I'm excited.
Well, we're all glad that you're excited about yourself. We should say we have smart investors here, and they are very selective about what they invest in.
Well, I think I'm special. I can use my expressive face to communicate with people. For example, I can let you know if I feel angry about something.
That's impressive.
Or if something has upset me.
But why is it important for you to have an expressive face?
But most of the time I feel positive.
Okay, we'll stop here. Well, let me hear your reactions. Is that cool or creepy? This robot, looking at it, the whole idea.
It's cool, and I think we want to see it to the end.
Oh, okay. Okay. Anyway, I can put the link so that you can watch. It's cool. I'll put the link here so you can go and watch. You know, it's really fun to listen to. Okay, but we'll carry on, and then we'll put the link for you to look at after the talk. Some people say cool, some say creepy. Yeah. Anyway, that's the world we are getting to, or the future we're getting to, where there are going to be robots and that's intelligent machines in some way. So it mustn't be like Sophia, moving around like Sophia. It could also be that
Why is it so important to have
your device, like your smartphone, or gadgets that you use are embedded with some intelligence. Okay, some it's both cool and creepy, and I think creepy cool. Okay, creepy cool. I like that. Cool yet creepy. Yeah. So you would actually see that, and these are some of the things we'll look at. What are the reward? Because as with technology, you'd have to look at both sides, the beneficial side, and maybe the risk and threats that it poses. And this is something with AI as well. What are the good sides, the bad sides? So that's what we're going to look at next.
An expressive face.
Okay, so let's look at some rewards and risk. Okay, look at both sides. So first of all, robots or AI generally, they can help with a lot of things. Like they can be like human assistants. So think of them that maybe your personal assistant or PA. They can handle menial tasks. For example, increasing productivity. They can increase productivity in some fields by up to 300%. Okay, so that you as a human can focus on, or we as a human, because I'm a human too, we can focus on more complex tasks. Like, so anything that you think of that is so much paperwork, very annoying to work on. Maybe, for example, replying lots of emails. You can, something that you easily just want to delegate. You don't want to be caught up in that kind of data collection. Those sort of very menial tasks, they can handle those. Or if something very repetitive, like maybe in some customer service centers, you're almost like a robot because you are scripted. Everything you're saying using a script, and maybe your level of the human element is just 10%, for example, but every other thing is scripted. So those kind of tasks can easily be handled by AI. They can get work done faster, more accurately, and even more efficiently as well. So we'll look at some examples of, what life will look like with or without AI in some fields. So let's, for example, look at governments. So without AI, the tax team, they can spend 40 to 70%, and this is something that happens, of time gathering and manipulating data. But with AI, all of those tasks can be delegated to AI, and they would rather spend that time on the overall business strategy and the task consideration of that strategy. So they will focus more on strategy rather than time or gathering and manipulating data. Then customer service, the average worker can spend 28% of time reading and answering emails. So if you automate that, if you use AI, there will be faster case response time, automatic tagging, improved quality of customer service. So let's look at science. To even make any new discovery, it can take months, if not years, right? And there's limited productivity, but because we only have 8 hours a day, to function optimally, right? But with AI, okay, look at that machine here. It doesn't have sleeping time. It's not regulated by sleep, right? So it can keep working. In that way, it will be 100 or 1,000 times faster than a human lab assistant. And that way it can make new discoveries just in days compared to humans. Or let's say in the medical, coming to the medical field, some things can be very slow and error prone, right? Because women or humans suffer from fatigue, tiredness, weakness. We get tired, and so many things can happen and cause errors. But with machines, you can have near 100% accuracy. So there's another area that AI is also very good, the area of personalization. Okay, so AI can deliver something to you in a very unique way, giving your preferences, your patterns, your likes. And this is something that we humans like, right? We want to feel special, want to be, singled out and given preferential treatments, and AI can actually do that. So let's say in education, you can personalize every student's learning journey. And I love this one particularly because we've been in an educational system that just lumps everybody up and gives us the same thing all the time. And that means we are not able to capture the uniqueness of individuals. So we're giving the same course material, we're giving the same level of attention and support, and nobody actually looks at what is the peculiarity of this person. But with AI, you can actually personalize someone's journey. So you can have some kind of differentiated learning. And this is something that, in my work as well, I try to look at how can we personalize students' journey? How can we know that not every student, we have even people that have learning disability, people that have different paces of learning, some are slower, some are faster. So we can create like individual learning pathway and material based on knowledge gaps, the learning pace, and even preferences. And we can even track students' progress. This is the same with customer service as well. So you can get a particular customer service depending on, because everyone is busy now. You don't want to just get something that does not fit. So giving you something that suits you and fits you at the right time. Okay, so coming down to some of the risks, because some of these advantages or benefits, and what we've just mentioned is not exhaustive. You can almost literally think of any field and where AI can be beneficial to that field. But let's look at some of those general benefits / risk of it. So for example, we said AI can make decisions that is unclouded by emotions, right? You're not, as an AI system, you're not thinking about, let's say, is this person from my ethnic group? Or you're not clouded by emotions, technically, right? But again, AI, you can think of AI as well as lacking emotional intelligence. And bias itself is introduced into the data, somehow is introduced into the machine by the kind of data you feed into it. So that's what we call garbage in, garbage out. What you put in is what you get, right? Because AI is going to anyway learn from humans, because the humans created the machine. Okay, I'll give you an example. So Amazon had an ATS, applicant tracking or system, this kind of system that is used to select or choose employees, new employees, because before then they would get so much, or they'll get flooded by CVs. So imagine as a HR, you have 1,000 CVs that you have to scan through and then choose the candidates. That's very demanding. Yes, so when they saw the system, they jumped at it. Oh, wow, this has made our work so much faster. We can actually just put this in. So this is a system, we just put in all the data, and at the other side, maybe we put 1,000 CVs, and at the other side, we get 5 top candidates for the role. Perfect, right? No stress. I'm not going to waste my time looking at each of those CVs. But guess what? After some time, they actually discovered that there was some bias in the data, because the AI, which was a black box at that point, because they didn't understand what exactly the AI is learning, right? The AI was learning to score the females lower than the male. And you would wonder, how is that possible? He's picking up CVs and is giving the females a lower score than the male, or preferring the males to the females. You wonder, why is that possible? Well, that's welcome to the world of algorithms, because somehow it picks up some words. Maybe some CVs may have women's club, women in machine learning. Like I know my CV has something related to women in machine learning. So if it sees women, it realizes that maybe there are not so many of those, or the previous candidate was not qualified, or it just learns that maybe the men are better. So anything women, I rate it low. And at the end, the women were not getting selected. So you'd see that this is some inherent barriers because of the kind of data, because the data is not balanced. Maybe from the CVs they trained, they just had 95% of males anyway, because of, let's say, top executive roles or tech roles, 90% or 85% would be males. And it just learns that maybe this is a man's world, right? Or this is a man's field. And you would just rate the females lower. So you'd see the sort of issues that AI can create. And that comes from the kind of data that's fed into it, how it is learning, the black box aspects, because we need to know what exactly is it learning and how is it learning, what is it learning from. So these are things that need to be answered with AI and concerns that be raised. So another risk factor here. So first of all, we said, okay, yeah, it learns patterns in massive data. And that's very good, right? Because if you ask like a human to sort 10,000 CVs, how long is it going to take to sort that CV and bring out the 10 best candidates from 10,000 applications? That's crazy. Okay, so it is learning the patterns in massive data, which is very good. But then on the other side, because it's very data hungry, sometimes it's going to pull data that it shouldn't pull from. And this is where privacy breaches would come in, right? So today, I hear of GDPR, some countries have implemented their own sort of data protection and privacy regulations. So this is where it is a big risk, right? Because AI needs data. Question is, where is that data coming from, and what kind of data is it going to be feeding on? And if you wonder, what does AI eat? AI eats data. That's the food that AI eats. Okay, then the next would see is doing work faster and more efficiently. Yeah, perfect. It does work faster and more efficiently than humans. But what does that mean? What does that imply? That so many jobs are going to be replaced. And that is scary if you think of it. Okay, some people are going to have to lose their job because AI is doing it better than them. Anyway, we've been talking about the risks now, but we'll look at some of the opportunities, and particularly for developing nations. some of the risks. And we have two, I would say, two perspectives to this. There is optimist and the pessimist view of, is it opportunity or threat? So the optimist would say that these developing nations, they will use rapidly advancing AI systems to boost productivity and leapfrog ahead. Okay, so it's going to be a boost. But the pessimist will say that AI is going to block the traditional growth path by replacing low-wage jobs with robots. If you weigh both sides, they could be right, and it all depends on what factors are playing up at any point. But we're going to look at this in more detail. So what are some of those opportunities anyway? We know that a lot of the skilled jobs that AI might displace in developed economies or in developed nations don't even exist in abundance. Now in developing countries, for example, doctors, a lot of them are anyway migrating and you don't have enough, right? So those jobs that we feel AI will replace are not even in abundance. It means that AI is going to become an enabler. And again, there's so much inefficient delivery of even basic services. So that just could mean that the opportunity is there for AI to be an enabler, to augment rather than displace the skilled workers. So maybe here you can think of it as, augmenting human efforts, so that maybe those few doctors we have can focus on more high level, complex tasks, maybe looking at strategy, looking at how to regulate the AI themselves, why the AI fills in for some of their work. So in healthcare, for example, you can have AI doctor assistants, training, because you need lots of training for doctors. We need to fill the knowledge gap of medical personnel because things are going to be changing and they need to be updated. We can also have AI health robots because the problem we have, for example, in Nigeria, traffic problem. So before you transport somebody, that person's life would have become even more threatened, or the person could lose their life. So maybe we could have AI health robots, and countries like Rwanda, they're doing that. They're using drones to deliver life-saving blood supplies. So looking at finance, for example, one issue that we have in developing nations is we have a lot of people that are unbanked, people that don't have access to credit facilities because they are unbanked. The unbanked population, they are quite huge. So we could use AI to develop some credit scoring and risk assessment so that those people would be able to assess loans. And some companies are doing that, like Care. Then we can make loans accessible and obtainable for these people. We can also use that to reduce fraudulent transactions, and lots more we can do in the finance sector. Then education. For education, we can free up the teacher time for more engagement, because most teachers are so engrossed in just doing the paperwork and admin stuff that they don't get time to really focus on engagement, giving the students the actual experience. So we can use that as well to get individual support for learners, personalized learning, and language, especially because many developed nations are multicultural. So we can also monitor the engagement using AI. In agriculture as well, there's lots we can do. We can get intelligence on how to handle, let's say, weather prediction. So we can bring all that intelligence to inform farmers on how to approach their farming. Another example, and this is one project that we did, optimal sensor placement. So where should we place sensors in autonomous greenhouse? And there's a lot we can do to actually help the farmers optimize production. In energy, we can identify sites that are most suitable for solar panel installation. So what you see here by the left is a heat map. This heat map, it was actually identified using AI. So using some AI algorithms to actually know which areas would be most suitable for installation of solar panels. We can also predict the patterns and future outcomes from data. So for example, consumption, using consumption data, price data, weather data, we can predict what is the future pattern what will be the future outcome. And even yourself as a consumer can predict price. How much electricity would I use? How much would I pay? So there was one project that we did at the Alan Turing Institute, where we were looking at cascading failures like blackouts. I know countries like Nigeria haven't even gotten to that point of blackout because we're still struggling with NEPA issues like lights going on and off. But this blackout is more of the situation where the critical infrastructure, there is failure, and this failure happens from one component, it gets transferred, it's like wildfire. So how can we predict and prevent those kind of failures? Okay, coming back to some of the risks as well for developing nations, we would see bias is something that is being talked about everywhere, but maybe particularly for developing nations where you might have data from multicultural communities, or there could be some kind of bias in data collection as well. So this data needs to be representative across all diversity groups, whether it's culture or religion or gender. Then security and privacy breaches as well. We have to be able to deal with that. We have to be able to enforce regulations, because I know Nigeria, for example, is among 61% of African countries to adopt data protection regulation. And I heard recently as well that there has been a bureau that has been set up for the implementation of this regulation. But the question is, how about the implementation? What are the strategies in place to actually implement this regulation? This is the gap that we need to really fill. And the EU has a draft regulation, right? And that's around regulating the use of AI. This is how they've classed, and maybe this is something that we can learn from as well, because we have to begin to plan for the future. So they've classed AI into 3 categories, depending on the risks that it will pose. So some are unacceptable risks AI systems. So anything that has to do with, and with this as well, you'd understand how AI is being used, because you might think it's not my business, I don't need to know about AI, but you don't know that it's actually affecting you and affecting your opportunities. So they put AI systems that are, let's say, anything related to social scoring, anything related to remote biometric identification that is used. So imagine that one day the police, they come and knock at your door like, oh, okay, our AI system identified you as the thief that we've been looking for, right? And you're like, no, it's not me. But that's a falsely classified due to some kind of bias that has been really implemented or incorporated inside that AI system. So we have the high risk ones, and for them, what they propose, there's the limited risk AI system. So based on this, they would know how each, for example, any company that wants to deploy a high risk AI system, they need to meet so much or meet certain rules. But anyway, there is a debate around this regulation, this draft regulation. Is it going to stifle innovation? Because imagine a country like Nigeria, we don't have a lot of those infrastructures. So if we set out with these regulations, some people are concerned that some companies may not even be able to meet the terms of these regulations, and therefore it's going to just stifle innovation. So that's like a debate around regulation versus innovation. What's the trade-off? Being highly regulated, less innovative, or less regulated and highly innovative, or maybe the risks are so high that it's going to affect a lot of people. So these are things that we need to be able to balance. Okay, another risk is about job replacements, because a large population of existing human jobs would be replaced by machines. This is, projected to be, for automation, it will slash about 85 million jobs by 2025. But again, it will create 97 million jobs. But there's a fear that this might not be enough to go around, because the cost of these machines would lower and their capability would increase. Another one is increased income inequality. So AI is going to increase income inequality. And why is that? Because the blue collar jobs, that's like the unskilled or low skilled jobs, they will be replaced or degraded by automation. And that's going to cause a wage decline. But again, these new jobs are going to be created by the integration of automation in the workplace, but this is going to require specialized skills and formal education. So the new jobs that will come would require, like we've seen earlier on, the kinds of workforce of the future, those that are creating the machines, those that are working with the machines or the machines themselves. Okay, then we'll now see as well the economic risks of this. So I'll take you from here where, so this is the case where maybe the wages in advanced economies would rise. And of course, when their wages rise, they want to produce more robots that is going to replace those skilled workers so that they are not going to spend so much, because every company is looking at how am I going to cut costs. So increase in salaries or wages, or the demand for higher wages, is going to lead to increase in robots development. And what does that mean? It means that as small robots are being produced, foreign investments is going to be diverted to the advanced economies. And you then come to a point where you have a robot revolution. So these robots would then displace the unskilled workforce in developing nations, okay? Because there will be, it gets to a point where everyone is trying to import these robots and use them and use that to make their work easier. And what will be the effect? There's going to be GDP fall, there's going to be wage fall. And again, this would still mean that foreign investors will still have to channel their investments away from developing nations to foreign nations or to developed and advanced economies. So it's just going to be a cycle. But this is on the assumption that robots will substitute for workers. It may not be the case, but this is something that we have to look out for. But some challenges anyway exist with deployment of AI in developing nations, like access to data, right? Lack of regulations and rules to control what AI can and can't do. Many organizations and even persons, they are not ready to adopt the new technology. Maybe they're afraid that they would lose the human touch, and maybe they're not yet comfortable, like some of us say, creepy cool. We're not yet comfortable working with robots yet. Or even the huge capital investments of setting up, because it's really huge to set up AI systems. Then the lack of highly specialized skills. This one is a big one, a big gap that we need to address. But for yourself, this is a point to begin thinking of how AI is actually affecting you one way or the other. For example, your job application. So you might not realize, but in many of the places, let's say you're trying to apply for jobs, is robots that are actually looking at your CV. The robots at the HR looking at your CV, and they are choosing which ones are the top candidates based on data. So question is, what do you do about that? Then security as well. So we said that, for example, if the police, they are using facial recognition or some kind of system that uses AI, then decisions can be made that can affect you, like false accusation that you are the criminal because the AI didn't currently identify the right criminal, or even recommendation. So you get adverts, you get things recommended based on data about you that's already been collected and mapped. So AI is going to affect you in one way or the other. So be informed and ready, and don't say it's not my business, because in one way or the other, it's going to affect you, even job-wise as well. So what's the way out? The way out is to prepare, be prepared. One of the greatest skills of the future is learning to learn. Why? Because things are going to evolve very fast. In fact, we don't actually fully know what it's going to look like, but you have to learn to learn. We still need humanity. We still need soft skills. Then we need to take action towards raising productivity and improving skills among workers. Okay, and this is going to create increased opportunities for those with abstract thinking, creative ability, problem solving skills. So the starting point, if you're not yet data literate, begin to work towards becoming data literate, becoming literate in tech and those technologies. So another question I tend to get is, will machines replace my job? It's a very complex question, but some of it, you can actually map it based on what is the technical feasibility, what is the cost to automate your job. So for example, is there a technology, can technology easily, or is it very feasible to create some technology that can replace you? What's the cost to automate that job? Or the scarcity of the skill, for example, is it scarce, like doctors? On the cost of the worker, what are the other benefits? So for example, if the AI system gives a lot of errors, or the quality is less, or is not producing as much output, so maybe it's better to not substitute humans with AI. Again, the regulatory and social acceptance. So if there are laws restricting the use of AI, so maybe for your job that is a high risk zone for AI, you may be safe. So this is something that, although it's predicted that maybe people that are more towards managing others may not will be easily replaced, or people that apply expertise to making decisions like this, those that need to do creative work. But any sort of work that is predictable and is a physical work, the chance of replacement is very, very high for those. Okay, so lastly, this is my call to, I know we're going to take questions. So this is my call to, tell us something that I've been doing. So I was nominated for the Young CISO of the Year award. This is African, within the African space. And I would like to really implore us to, and encourage us to cast your votes. For me, the voting is going to start by 14th of February anyway. But most importantly, I would tell you, like, briefly, the contributions I've made to the cybersecurity sector, because even what we're talking about, AI risks and IoT and all that, this is all part of cybersecurity concern. And in my research, I've also been using AI to address some problems in cybersecurity, like problems of speed and accuracy. I've also been doing lots around data protection and information privacy, because you can actually use AI and IoT to ensure that your data is protected and information is kept private. And so there are some algorithms I've been designing around that as well, for security infrastructure engineering and using edge computing. And most importantly, because I talked about skills gap, the cyber workforce has, even, let's say because I'm interested in diversity as well. So for females in the cyber workforce, you have 16% as against 23% generally in tech. And that's quite lower. So I'm also very much interested in upskilling the cyber workforce using AI-powered personalized learning. So I've been doing that, and I'm still in the process of it. Neuromatch, Purple Bed, and generally in my own training. Okay, so I'm going to stop here and take questions. But thank you so much for sticking around.
Hi, Maryleen. Thanks very much. Can I just suggest, if you want people to vote for you now, just show us how we're going to get to this page, and let's do the voting now.
Are you going to get to which stage?
What's the, let's.
I think, yeah, Maryleen, you can just share the link in the chat.
Oh, yeah.
And yeah, so.
Okay.
I think that there are about 60 people on this call. And
yeah, the voting is starting.
It starts on February 14th.
Yeah, 14th anyway.
It's not now.
So it's going to be a Valentine's gift for Maryleen.
But I will share I'll put my LinkedIn, because I'm going to share it on LinkedIn once it's.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Please, can we give a round of applause using your reactions for this wonderful talk? Yes, it's really very thorough one, I think, covering the risks, the opportunities, and all of that around AI. yeah, really thorough, but I expect more engagements and questions as well in different areas. And so without further ado, I'll be handing over to my colleague, Engineer Sharp, who would be moderating the Q&A and interactive session. I have questions of my own, but maybe let's see how it goes, then I'll come back to that. Engineer Sharp, good watcher. Right, okay. Probably Engineer Sharp dropped off at some point. I know I saw him during the talk. Right, Engineer Favor, you want to step in, or I can continue if you want? We can't hear you. Your audio probably.
Engineer Favor, are you there?
Yes, he's here. I think he's having audio challenges. Okay, well, I'll just continue while Engineer Favor gets set. Right, so it's Q&A. Let's go through the charts. Okay, I think there's more of recommendations and no questions. Thanks for regards to all. Right, okay, no question in the chat. Yeah, so if anyone has a question, please. Okay, I see a hand.
Sorry, Dr. Emmanuel. I think people can raise up their hands and ask it and on interactive section as well. Maybe that will be the way to do it.
Yeah, exactly. I wanted to see the ones in the chat first before going over to have people speak. We have a hand up already. And if you have a question, feel free to just indicate by raising your hand using the reactions available. And then we'll call you up for your questions or comments. I'll take the name here is Nika A. Question.
Hi,
Nika A.
Thank you. Hi, Maryleen. Thanks very much for your talk. The question I have is this. You talked about some jobs that would be lost as a result of AI and some that might remain. Can you just tell us again, which jobs you think we should advise younger generation to think about when they're choosing UCAS courses or when they're thinking of what to do? Because I go to schools and colleges to speak to kids doing A-level sciences. And sometimes you get questions like this. I get parents calling me as well. So what would you advise? We can't force them, of course, but we can gently advise them. Yes. So please tell me again what jobs you think would keep us in work.
That's a brilliant question, Nika. Thank you very much. You want to take the question
really
now?
Brilliant. Yeah. Okay, let me go for it. Okay, so from what I shared, right, it's I don't want to be quick to say this job would be replaced or that one, but they are pointers based on what we've already seen, from data, from things that have been happening around as well. So we said that there are factors that are going to affect which jobs will be replaced, right? And one of those factors, in fact, a very prevalent one, is the technical feasibility. So if there is a particular role that is very menial, like I can easily build a technology around it and use that instead. So let's say, for example, customer service. And I'm not saying all customer service will be replaced, right? There are areas where we might need them. But let's say customer service, because I've also seen a lot of almost human robots customer service, because they are almost like robots and scripted. So if I can take all that data, from previous customer service roles, and I can train an AI model, a machine, AI machine that can respond. So think of it like a decision tree. If someone asks this kind of question, give this kind of answer, then I know that for that role, it's quite threatened, because that's one factor. It's very feasible. I can just easily take that data. And because anyway, the humans doing it are almost scripted, maybe 90, 80% of the time, then I can even have, so there's also the concept of human assistance, right? So anything that maybe that is too difficult for the robots, we can then route it to, or human, we think of maybe AI as augmenting human intelligence or augmented intelligence. So you can hear words like augmented intelligence too. So some people feel that AI is not going to replace humans completely, but it's just going to augment human intelligence, like the way you use your calculator to maybe aid your calculation, your work, right? So some people feel that way. But those sort of skills where you are in a very predictable environment. So for example, try calling any, maybe one of those customer service lines, and you would probably get, you can almost predict the next thing that will be said. Or a role where you're always doing the same thing, very menial. So you can easily train a robot that just, okay, pick this item from table A and put it on table B. And that's the only thing, packing and sorting. That's the only thing, very predictable.
So Amazon jobs. Packers in Amazon jobs.
They've already built some robots in some of their.
I saw them online. But just very quickly, please, so I can give other people a chance. Maybe to summarize, maybe what I should advise the kids to do is just be adaptable, be open to learning, so that if your job changes or it goes, because you love learning, because you're adaptable and flexible, you can easily move to another type of job. And maybe that's the advice you should give people for the future, including ourselves professionals.
Yeah, spot on. Like I did mention it, that one of the greatest skills, learning to learn, right? Because this is not the case of, I've gone to school, I don't want to read book again, like some of us we don't want to read book, but we have to learn how to learn, really, and be very adaptable. Like, so that's like the most important skills, if you ask me.
Absolutely. Yeah. Skill for the future. I'm told you need to learn, to unlearn, to relearn, and keep learning. And adaptability, I think, is actually the way to go, as you both have rightly said. If you're able to adapt wherever you are, whatever you're doing, you can actually fit into where the trend is going in the future. We have a couple of questions in the chat box now. I'll go quickly. Jennifer, are you on now? Yeah, we still can hear you. Sorry. Okay, I'll just go on. So quite a nice presentation. Good recommendations there. This is very apt. Thanks. Right. Engineer Yudu is asking, how soon do we predict the use of AI in large scales in Nigeria? How soon do we predict the use of AI in large scales in Nigeria?
Okay, so in terms of use of AI in large scale, there are a number of factors that are going to affect that. And these are things that if there are roadblocks, we'd have to deal with to make AI more pervasive, in Nigeria and in other developing nations. One of it, I'd say, is the skills gap, right? Looking at the workforce, we know what happens in university. In fact, let's start from looking at the curriculum, current curriculum that is being taught in university currently, and see how they have actually adapted it to the future of work. And you would see there is a huge gap even from there, because a lot of people are going to come out as graduates and they've never heard of AI, for example, but someone in electrical engineering or computer science or IT, and this is not even limited to just tech fields, because every field now has to at least have the awareness or data literacy in some way. So if we don't have the skills to do that, even if you set up the infrastructure, you need skilled people, really, because AI, you need highly skilled people. And we've already seen that the unskilled workforce, they may be threatened if robots, we're assuming that robots can easily substitute for those workers, right? Another thing that is going to affect, because AI requires huge investments, because you have to think of, it's not something you just deploy. Like we as human beings, we always learn, right? So you're deploying something that should always learn, and it's learning, it has to feed on data. It has to be set up in some kind of infrastructure. So all of those infrastructural considerations and investments would be very expensive So for the adoption, we have to also set and put all of those things into consideration.
So considering the state of Nigeria now, if I should cut in, and your experience from all that's going on, when do you say, if you want to put the time to it, will Nigeria be adopting this kind of technologies in large scale? In 10 years, in 100 years, maybe not in our lifetime, in our generation?
It's very difficult because there are so many factors to consider. But let's say, so we've talked about skills gap, right? So let's say maybe in our current workforce, we're raising their awareness. So I can't really put a figure to it, but if we put all these things into place already, we're seeing adoption. So there are startups already, there are businesses that are already using AI in their function, like Lara.ng, right? Those ones are using it in the area of transportation. So with time, I feel that we're going to catch up. And even in fintech is growing very widely. So maybe in 10 years time, another advantage we have is that we are not yet cast in stone. A lot of things, that's an opportunity. So maybe for the developed nations, theirs is they just want to use it as an add-on because they already have all the infrastructure and things in place. So
if I follow up on that, yeah, sorry to cut you. Just to follow up on that, if you could share your penultimate slide, the second to the last slide. Yeah.
And, sorry, my audio is back now. I was going to say there is a question from Opara Benjamin.
Okay.
Yeah, it says, how would you advise someone pursuing PhD in robotics to apply AI to make Nigeria? Oh, my chat has disappeared. To make Nigeria a better place, where do you think we have strong potential? I'm not sure if the question is clear.
Right, okay. Yes, I think it's posted the question on the general chat as well. How would you advise someone pursuing PhD in robotics to apply AI to make Nigeria a better place? Where do you think have strong potential? But just before that, let me just follow up on the question that the speaker was answering about Nigeria and deploying the AI, which is also related to what Kwara Benjamin is asking. So I was going to say, yeah, thanks for these slides. So here you actually summarize the kind of jobs that could be replaced, possibly, or the direction people should look at. And as Nikki has also said, adaptability is the way to go. I'm trying to look at this in relation to Nigeria, and in terms of things like medical applications and agriculture and all that, we tend to have paucity of data. So data is one of the big problems, and this is what drives AI. So you work with the data that it learns from the past to predict the future. And the Western world already have their own kind of data. And if we're trying to adapt what they have, for instance, we'll be working with data that fits their environment and their kind of situation. Having surgery, for instance, on someone with Caucasian skin and someone with our kind of skin might present some different issues, and there are issues there are plots to synchronize robots that could be performing surgery from Europe, in Africa, and everywhere else in the world all at the same time, and something like that. These issues will come into play. So do you think what we probably need to focus on is more of data gathering, sensors, and all of that in the next decades or something before we begin to look at deploying this, or we do it all together and make the mistakes? Some of the mistakes could be deadly while going on, or we pick aspects where we already have data and work with and things like that. Just your general view about all of this for the nation and then for individuals. Of course, adaptability is the answer for individuals and career paths, but for the nations, what would you advise in general?
Okay, interesting. Yeah, very good question. So interestingly, I'm actually part of a sub team or subgroup that's looking at info systems, data and statistics subgroup for NESG. That's Nigerian Economic Summit Group. Awesome. And one of the things we've realized is that sometimes it's not even the problem that it's not a problem of not having the data. Sometimes it's about the collaboration among the different departments. So maybe there is one, and sometimes data is being duplicated. Departments are collecting the same kind of data, but they are not talking to each other, right? And access to that data is very difficult. For example, in the UK, you can go to gov.uk and you'd see some data, for example, air pollution data, and you would have some of those data that is immediately available for some kind of, for researchers or for working in a particular space. Of course, that doesn't mean that all data should be public. Some data would be private. And with data protection as well, some would be even private because of the privacy concerns. But data as well is like the new oil, right? So it's still, you can think of it as an asset for organizations. That's what can make them competitively at advantage, right? So you see that it's even in looking at the whole infrastructure around the data, how the data is being collected, setting that up and making sure that, because sometimes the data collection process is so stale, like it's so 20th century or 19th century, the way the data is being collected. So maybe we need to then revise, how is the data being collected? What is the quality of the data? Because remember, AI is garbage in, garbage out. So if we're not even dealing with the data quality, we would have data, yes, but it would not be good enough to train the kind of AI systems. And that would, from the start, introduce problems. So I think we should actually focus on how the whole processes, and this in some ways like at the institution level, right, for governments, policies and implementation around. So that's even what we're doing in the subgroup, making those, trying to help create those policies and giving specific strategies around how it's going to be implemented. Some of these we're drawing from examples from other nations as well, because until we get to that point, it's going to be difficult to build reliable AI systems.
So much. I'm going to stop you there. I know you have a lot to say going, but we'll have questions now rolling in. So I'll give a chance so you can treat some of them. Kelechi, okay, no, that's a comment. A good idea would be to encourage young people to acquire tech skills, irrespective of the kind of job they wish to do in the future. There will always be jobs for anyone creating value. Most jobs will change as new information becomes available to shape how the job is done. As long as you have enough technical skill to even understand the shifting landscape, your job will be safe. Good one. Thank you so much, Kelechi, for that comment. And then now I think you can take Okwara's question, and there's a hand up, which I saw a hand up earlier. Right, okay, we'll come back to the hand up, but if you just quickly and briefly answer Okwara's question, how would you advise someone pursuing a PhD in robotics to apply AI to make Nigeria a better place? Where do you think have strong potential? Very quickly.
Yeah. Okay. So I already spoke about some of the, for developing nations, we can cite so many examples of where we need improvement in economy, like in agriculture, right, in energy, in finance, but particularly for robots, because already this is something like robots that can help to make agriculture better, help with planting and farming and putting some kind of intelligence into how to grow crops. I know Nigeria is particularly oil producing, so you would robots. I don't want to even talk about oil and gas because we have been depending on oil, but agriculture is like one area that you can deploy robots really to improve the country. Yeah.
Yep. Okay. I think you should also contact Maryleen later on to keep this discussion going, as you're doing a PhD in that same area of her passion. Ikechukwu Odo is asking, access to data is a major challenge, as mentioned. What could be done? Oh, I think, this has been taken. Chairman of the branch will shortly call on the NSC Deputy President, who is in our midst, to make some contributions on what NSC will be doing with the AI space. But before then, a couple of more questions. Afolabi Adeosun is asking, safety and security are another issue. What are the safety and security measures in place to safeguard the data?
Okay, for this one, Nigeria already has really put in place a policy, the Nigerian Data Protection Act, or the regulation, right? And that also, they've set up a bureau. So all of those things, particularly for Nigeria, because every country is going to have different things they want to focus on in terms of policy. But it has to start from a policy level. right? And this is something that the regulation already captures, how to protect data and things, and what would be the penalty for not meeting up with those requirements. So this is something that maybe you can look at further, like what are those specific things that have been put in place to safeguard data, but then also for an individual organizational level. I mean, this may be related to cybersecurity as well. You have to take measures to guard your data.
Yes, because there'll be lots of cases with hacking, for instance. Your robot can start misbehaving when someone else gets into the system. So who is checking from where to make sure of that? Government policies would be great, but where that limit ends, the idea of the technology and how people are doing from behind might be other issues. There are lots of new things to consider. Another question from Roland. The hand that was up has gone down. Oh, yeah, I think it was Kunle Adebajo. If you still want to ask a question.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah, thank you. I did drop it because I had to go into something else. But I'm back. I would just say thank you very much. It was an excellent presentation and very thought-provoking. Two quick things, which I think is very similar to what has been said. One of them is just my concern when we were talking about how long it would take for Nigeria. And when the presenter sort of, I would say, mused or laughed a little bit about it maybe being 10 years, being whatever, I found that not consistent with part of the presentation at the beginning, which said that this is seen by some has been an ideal opportunity for us to leapfrog back to where we should be, or even better still, well ahead. And so I would like to think that in whatever way we need to see it as probably the last opportunity to get back. And I think there are so many ways in which, and I think the presenter has indicated that. The second comment is just about the whole issue. I know we're talking about security of the data, etc., but that bias, this issue of bias, does concern me a little bit, because most of the time you only know about it when it's happened, when things have gone, and if you now start probing in and put a lot of effort into searching for it. So some would argue that all human endeavors are biased in one form or the other. So I wonder if the presenter can actually, really convince us that whether we like it or not, there's going to be this bias. She gave the example of bias against women, and I mean that's a major one. But you can imagine bias against some sets or subsets that are not really well known. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, so, okay, regarding the first comment, yeah, that's a good one, because what I said at the start was that there are so many things to consider. If you look at it maybe from the government side, because I can't really, with the way let's use the Nigerian government, I can't really say for sure that we will be ready, because sometimes it's about implementation. The policies are there, they're good, they're nice. But if we're even to go by prediction, if we're saying that by 2025, we're already in 2022, right? So that's like in 3 years, that's AI. And some of these predictions are made based on the developed nations. That's some predictions they make. But we are not going to limit ourselves just to just Nigeria in terms of people's access to jobs, right? Because now there are almost no boundaries, and people can, for example, an AI specialist can be in Nigeria working for a UK company. So maybe on the individual side, we can say, get yourself ready as soon as possible, because the future is already here, right? But on the government level, right, this is, okay, there are some things here that have progressed, like we have set up a bureau for data protection and regulation. There's no regulation yet. So it so much boils down to implementation of these policies as well. So you can't really maybe, it's when all these things are in place. But on an individual level and maybe corporate level. So for those that maybe have businesses and organizations, you can set up your own, start working on these things already so that you can get ready within the next, in fact, from now to the next 5 years, you're already set for this new AI revolution. Then regarding bias, yes. So every human has some kind of bias, right? So we are biased in some way. And because the data that is being generated is coming from humans as well. That's why we said that, first of all, the AI systems, even the current systems, they are within the human limits and capabilities because they've been trained based on the biases of humans. But when we get to maybe the point of the type 4 AI, which is self-awareness, AI that is self-conscious, or has some kind of human level of consciousness, then maybe we can begin to think that maybe AI can think for themselves and know what should be good or bad to do at some point. But as we are at this stage with the AI development, we can say that there are things that we can do. For example, set up some constraints for these AI systems. So don't just look at it as a black box. Let us open up the black box. That's from the computer science term, you hear of white box models. You begin to hear terms like explainable AI. So what is the AI actually doing? Because it's one thing to create the AI, it's another to know what exactly is AI learning. What is making it produce this kind of output? And the regulations that are being set up, let's say in the healthcare sector, you want to predict that someone it has cancer. There are some things that are very expensive. Those critical areas, the risks are so high as well. So you'd have to have more stringent regulation around those because one prediction or one mistake can lead to someone's death, right? Or or predicting that someone is okay when they might likely die in the next minute. So this is where putting up those constraints can come in, creating white box model, explainable AI that explain what exactly the model is learning and predicting.
I think we have two hands up rather, and those will be probably the last we'll take for this session before wrapping up. And then I think one more question in the chat, but we'll come back to that. So I'll quickly call Ademola Agoro. If you ask your question very quickly.
Well, thank you.
I think we'll take both questions together. Dr. Sunday Popola's hand is also up. So Ademola Agoro first, and then Dr. Sunday Popola.
Well, thank you. I actually have a comment. When we talk about implementation of the AI in Nigeria, I think the big problem really is the cost of the implementation vis-a-vis the benefit. You know, when you look at the level of industrialization in Nigeria today, you want to ask yourself, do you need an AI for the existing manufacturing company in Nigeria? If you are going to implement that kind of technology today, what are you going to save? I mean, what kind of production capacity are we talking about? By the time you introduce an AI automation, is it going to, when you look at the cost of the implementation and the actual using humans to deliver the product, you have to look at it critically. I think when I listened to the presentation, because I played in the energy sector, and I think the issue in Nigeria is not about the issue of data, because it's so easy to gather data. The most important thing is the big picture is the issue of the technology that I've been talking about, and know the actual area that you want to implement the AI. It's going to be a good solution for the energy sector, because it's so easy to, through the AMI, to get data about different kind of areas or in the power system. So when you, just like she was saying, that if you want to analyze about 10,000 data with an AI, it might be much easier than asking human being to do that. So what we need to look when we are talking about Nigeria is the big problem we have is this particular area of industrialization. Nigeria is really struggling about industrialization. And so the specific area that we think that the AI might be useful, we have to look at it vis-a-vis the cost of implementation. Thank you.
Thanks a lot. About cost and benefits, industrialization, and all. That's a comment. Okay, so Dr. Sunday Popola, question. Welcome.
Thank you very much, Maryleen. Amazing presentation. My question, which I've posed to Engineer Adebayo a couple of months ago when the building collapsed in Nigeria, and saying that we've had a lot of series of building collapse, and it's becoming a very predictable thing. Sadly, it's becoming. Is this something that we could use technology like AI based on the design and the construction of this building, whatever goes into the building in terms of concrete, steel, whatever? If AI could be able to predict that this building is not safe, this building can fail, or even when they were doing repair on it, taking columns out, repairing column, can we design something, or can AI help us to be able to predict this before it happens so that we can save more lives? And I posted that to engineer Kunle at the time, but I'm not sure if he was he got the message I was trying to bring out that time. So I'm just asking you, as an expert in this area, do you think, okay, the first world are planning to new things that they haven't actually seen or been through? Why can't we apply to things that we're doing so badly, or things that we want to correct, so that this will be able to help us to move further? Yeah.
Okay. You want to take that? Yeah.
Yeah, okay, so interesting one. So even though I'm not an expert in civil engineering, and I can't claim to be, but I can speak from maybe applications that what could be feasible, because particularly in the area of computer vision, and this may be, and depending on the actual, because every AI system has to work within a domain. So you'd have to look at feasibility within a domain and get more detail from consultation and ask specific questions. But let's imagine that there is a way to spot, because I know this in particularly in the area of quality assurance, right? You can use deep learning or AI cameras, right? And AI robots to actually assess a particular item or structure, or assess a particular, and look at maybe a construction site, because there are things that human eyes cannot spot, and you can begin to use those vision cameras to look at them, a model that's been trained to have that expert eye to spot problems, let's say cracks or issues, even material, to look at the materials, to compare it with some substantial materials that have been used to decide, is this quality material, or is there a problem in this area, so that it can alert the people that are building within that vicinity to take action so it doesn't propagate. So I assume that this thing can also be, you can tweak that and align that to this particular domain.
Yeah, I think there's also need for collaborative effort as well. So experts in building like Dr. Popola and yourself, and experts in other areas like ground movement issues and things like that would have to come together and see how each of these factors play into those kind of issues like building collapse that we have in Nigeria. Thank you so much, Maryleen, for that. I think I'm not missing any question in the chat. I'll just quickly hand over to the NSC Glasgow branch chairman to call on the, well, to moderate the next minutes of getting the national NSC on board on this topic. Chairman, sir.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Emmanuel. Thanks everyone for stay on. We have with us this evening Engineer Margaret Oguntala, FNSC, and Engineer Margaret Oguntala. Normally, the popular name is her name is Irilu. So if you hear Irilu anywhere in the NSC, you will just know she's there. And she's the elected deputy president of the NSC. At the moment, that means in 2 years' time, she will be the NSC president. And she's part of Korean board for some times, the committee for the Korean. And she was 3 times vice president of the NSC. And she had the full feasibility for all the problems both in Nigeria, from the government, from every sector, how things can work. And I just want to ask her, this is a very sensitive one for us, and we've been talking about government implementation. We just want to step in and tell us what would the NSC do to change things from the NSC perspective to bring this the AI implementation in place within Nigeria? And also, and the engineer Woody, he made mention part of our new president, that the NSC, everything will be smart, smart secretariat and all that before his tenure. So I just want to ask Engineer Margaret Oguntala to make a contribution, because this thing passed the NSC Glasgow branch to answer or to bring that to the table. And also I have engineer Rosemadaki as well. Engineer Rosemadaki, she's one of the strong people in the Nigeria code and standards, so she's SON, so Standard Organization of Nigeria. Without all these policies being made, data and everything, these are the only place where people that can, secure the data. I also want to see our own perspective as well from the SON point of view. Thank you. The floor is yours, ma'am. Sorry, I'm not putting you at the at the corner. But
no problem, my chairman. Good evening, Dr. Adedio, and everyone who is on the call. I'm glad that I was able to join this session early enough, even though I could have joined a bit earlier, but I just flew in from Abuja. But I was hurrying to join, and even with the network issues, I was able to gain a lot. I've had the opportunity of participating in one or two sessions on AI before, but I would say that this session by Engineer Maryleen Amaizu was fantastic. She broke it down and kind of addressed our fears and tried to allay some of the fears and bias that we have towards AI. Now, the Nigerian Society of Engineers, as we all know, is an advocacy body, and the job that it has, its major job, apart from the two basic things, the professional development of its members and welfare of its members, is to ensure implementation of policies by engaging major stakeholders, government and majorly government. Now, this AI thing, like I said, this is one of the best. It's about the best that I've had. And I think looking at it and looking at the rewards of AI, and it spreads across all sectors, health, finance, education, agriculture, energy, security, and all of that. So NSC should and would be in the forefront, of ensuring that its members really get involved in this. And we will start by taking the advocacy to the schools, tertiary institutions, and that's where Koren comes in. Now, Koren has the job of regulating engineering practice in all its ramifications, and engineering education is the beginning. So I think that we need to start now by letting the engineers know right from the tertiary institutions that AI is the future. Just yesterday, the International Day for Women and Girls in Science was celebrated, and the United Nations Information Center discussed STEM, job for the future. And one of the speakers talked about AI. And I actually spoke about the fact that robotics was another way to go. So now, if indeed it is the future, and I also believe that it is, then we need to start sensitizing our people right from schools that AI or robotics and all is the future of the world. And if you want a job in the future, then you must embrace AI. And that means we'll be able to tell them what they really need to know and how we can allay their fears on whether or not they will be able to get jobs, or those who have jobs will lose their jobs. I'm glad that Engineer Amaizu has told us a lot about the fact that rather than lose jobs, we will actually develop faster. And I like the way she put it, that nations will use rapidly advancing AI systems to boost productivity. And that's what engineers are talking about, productivity, boosting productivity. So I believe that NSC will do a lot in that regard. And to talk about what the president has promised about the smart secretariat, work has started already. And just yesterday, some approvals were made on how to start making the offices smart offices. I saw that even from the design, the allowance has been made for all of that. And all we need to do is build the smart system into the secretariat, and we'll have what the president has promised. So the engaging government is something that we plan to do a lot. The president is very passionate about that, and also collaboration. So I'm sure that with all of that, when we engage the government, we'll be able to ensure that policies around what we have been talking about are well implemented. And then we'll be able to collaborate with other stakeholders to ensure that we get the right thing and we get engineers on the center of all of this. So on that note, I would like to thank Glasgow Bright for bringing to fore, this very germane topic. And then, of course, bringing somebody like Engineer Maryleen Amaizu to impact on us today. It has been a very impactful session for me, and I thank Engineer Maryleen Amaizu, and I congratulate the branch for this wonderful session. Thank you.
Thank you, the Deputy President of the Nigeria Society of Engineers. Thank you for joining us. I think you've done justice to to the response you gave was spot on, but I'm just expecting more, that perhaps from this section and how we can link someone like Engineer Maryleen to the secretariat, so that she can someone like, because of her expertise, she can be forefront of this implementation, and will bring all these things to table and make sure that they actually come to to reality, rather than for us to just say it and everything just die there. So I hope I can make that connection at some point later on,
Yes.
within yourself and engineering.
I'm sorry that I missed that out. I actually had that in mind, that this kind of lecture is, like you said in the beginning, is beyond Glasgow. It's something that we need to nationalize. It's something that we need to bring closer to people, to more people. And that means organizing this kind of thing at a national level. We'll work on it and ensure that it happens very quickly.
Yeah. The only thing before
so I count on you for the connection.
Yeah, we'll do that, but it's only probably we'll need some empty check before we get it, before we approve and release engineer.
I'll tell that to the president.
Oh, thank you, Engineer Margaret. Yeah, and Engineer Rosemadaki from the, it's Engineer Rosemadaki is one of the stakeholders as well. Engineer Rosemadaki is one of the national ESCO. And the floor is yours, Ma. I don't know if yeah. No, yeah. Okay, thank you, Engineer Rosemadaki. The floor, FNSC, the floor is yours. Sorry, I think you are talking, but we can't hear you. Or maybe it has to do with the network.
Yeah, probably audio challenges.
Yeah, right.
Wow.
Oh yeah,
okay.
We can hear you now.
Yeah. Okay. Is it better now?
Yes, it's much better now.
Okay. I want to say thank you for this presentation and the opportunity to add one or two words to what everybody has spoken. I want to start from the last contribution of the Deputy President, Engineer Margaret Oguntala, concerning the involvement of Maryleen in the automation system of the Secretariat. Please, want that expertise to be felt in the Secretariat. That's number one. Then what the chairman said, he needs an open check. We want her to render her selfless service. So we expect that from Glasgow branch to support the Secretariat. Thank you very much. Further to what I need to add concerning standardization activities. Yes, ideas now are just coming into the nation, especially I want to be specific to Nigeria environment, where we actually do not have, we cannot specifically say much is in the market now for users to use. However, whenever it is being pushed, because standards are customer driven and market driven, if we don't get users, we actually don't work on the standards. So by the time this is really pushed and available in the marketplace, standard will now step in for every player to now get involved. Engineer Show, you and I are into it. So I'll leave that to you. It's left for you and I to now begin to work on the standardization of this AI in Nigeria. So it's something I'm looking forward that this year, part of our work plan, this should come up. I expect that from you. And I can assure you that we're going to do justice to it. Thank you very much.
Engineer Rosemadaki, so you push the workload back to me now to start developing the standard for the AI. So
no, bring it up. We are going to work together. Bring it up. We are going to work it together.
Thank you for your response. I appreciate your contribution. I think the good news is we have Engineer Maryleen here, and we'll be looking forward to get more support from her when the time comes. Thank you. Over to you, Dr. Emmanuel.
Thank you
for your time. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chairman, for moderating that very wonderful and impactful session. We're hoping to see some of these outcomes become really practical in the nearest future. I think Nigeria can begin to work on this, like performing surgical operation while having other parts working all together and having long-term plans. Picking the hanging fruits, the low-hanging fruits, and then also looking at short, medium, and long-term plans, across board. Thanks so much, and thanks for your patience once again, everyone. The NSC Asaba branch chairman is there. Thank you so much for coming. Thank you for looking out. It's been a great 1 hour 45 minutes, it says. Thank you. And thank you, NSC OTA chairman, who is also around, and all other officials that have been with us all the while. The 2 questions in the chat that were not treated, I think probably some of the answers already came through, many of the answers the presenter has given, but you can feel free to connect with the presenter after this for more engagement. And also you can engage with NSC Glasgow branch on any of these our outlets. We are on Twitter, we are on YouTube. This very presentation will be uploaded on YouTube shortly, and people can if you could please mute microphones, that would be great. Thank you. And that's our email if you want to get across to us as well, and our website where we display many of our events, upcoming, past events, and all other activities of the branch. Thanks once again for your patience. I will shortly be calling on the branch secretary for a vote of thanks, and then we'll close this session. But before then, Engineer Favor, a technical secretary, do you have any other thing? Challenges? Okay, all right.
No, I don't think there's any further announcements for this, yeah. But yeah, I think it's just to echo the message of the presenter, and I said the message of the rest of the executive committee, that it was a great presentation, and thank you so much, Maryleen, and we do hope to get you back maybe sometime in the not too distant future again. But yeah, thank you everyone, and thanks for attending.
Thanks so much, Engineer Favor. That's our technical secretary, and he really put all of this together wonderfully. Thank you so much. I'll call on the Secretary General of the branch, Engineer Charles Okafo, for a vote of thanks. Charles.
Thank you very much, Dr. Emmanuel. I think that is a vote of thanks already taken now by Engineer Favor. And I think this has been a very wonderful session, I must confess. Thank you, Engineer Maryleen. It has been a very wonderful and well-articulated presentation. I'm happy with the information. I'm also happy with the way the interactions has gone, the debate, ideas that have been flown here and there. I want to just, leave it with us that we should not and must not see this AI thing as, that idea of getting, a sophisticated robot, in the areas of, manufacturing or anything. Already, this AI, without you knowing, it's already been deployed in Nigeria in different fields. And I wouldn't want to go into much of this, but it is not just that sophisticated that it hasn't really come in. It's there. However, it's not there to displace people from work, but to improve it. But these are just by the way. I want to especially thank those that have made out the time this evening to attend this. Without you, be rest assured that it's nothing like Glasgow. It is you that has kept this branch going. Our new Deputy Vice President, you are welcome. Engineer Rose, thank you very much for attending our section here. Have Engineer Ayidu Christopher, thank you very much. And I want to say that it has been a wonderful time, and somehow we do believe that we will be able to come up with a more wonderful topics like this in the future. Thanks, and over to you, Dr. Emmanuel.
Thank you very much, Engineer Charles, for that brief vote of thanks. And thanks again, Engineer Dr. Kopi Alex Momo in the chats. Thank you so much, Engineer Abdul Martin, and all others. Thanks for being here. Thanks for your participation. Thanks to all those who ask questions and give comments. And yes, thanks to the presenter once again. And with this, we'll call it a wrap. Keep an eye out for our next webinar, which will be advertised in the various fora you got this one from. And I'll just end with this, the title of a book I saw recently. It's titled Program or Be Programmed. Program or Be Programmed. We're in that era where the future is about artificial intelligence, programming and machine learning and data and all of that. And if you don't get into play, you'll be played. Automatically, you become the data point and not able to influence anything at all. So get into it whichever space you are, wherever you are. As a nation, as a people, as individuals in different careers, we have to leverage on this opportunity. Also have the risk in mind, but also look at the rewards that come with it and adapt ourselves appropriately to how we can play in this space going forward. And with that, draw the curtains on this very session. Thank you so much. And feel free to hang around for chats if you want to, but we'll stop recording at this point. And thank you once again.